closed, we've already talked about that. At the same time, the blower wheel turns, moving here. And then the heat element will cycle on and off at each speed according to the temperature selected. Okay? We've already discussed some of this, okay? The timer, the motor, the belt, the heating element, the door switch. We're actually gonna go over that over here on this one a little bit as we go on through. Okay? The belt switch, the tensioner, okay? Temperature sensor, of course, electronic control board, user interface. Some of these may be mechanical timers as well as electronic control board. Okay? Of course, these are different types of timers that you may see. Can we go back 1 second?
Again, I'm gonna get you guys a copy of these.
Probably
So-
send in your email so you just open it up.
Does
Yeah.
a presentation like this exist for every major appliance? This is the great one.
Yeah, this is for major appliance. Yeah.
So we have something like this for like refrigerators where it breaks down
Yes.
parts like
Yep.
this?
Yeah.
Awesome. That's really good.
Yeah. I think the plan is to give you guys kind of this early tomorrow morning as well
Okay.
for refrigeration. So
Awesome.
Okay, these motors, okay? So up in here, you'll see all these wire connections and everything. So your centrifugal motor is gonna be attached to it right behind all this. Up underneath, once that centrifugal switch motor clicks in, it's gonna send a signal back to allow power from L1 over to your heater. Okay? That real quick here on 3. Yep. Oh, you want to? Yeah. Good.
So we're going to show you this motor here. So
There you go.
this little motor here, this is the motor inside the dryer. This is going to be the same on both the electric and the gas, right? Dryers are very, very simplistic, okay? So you got this dryer down here. You got the main motor assembly right in here. You can kind of see this. You guys kind of see that moving?
Yeah.
That is your centrifugal switch. Okay, and what that does is when it ramps up to about 75% of its operating speed, that centrifugal switch will engage. It uses that centrifugal motion with the weight system to throw it into position to complete the circuit that tells the machine to allow heat to go ahead. Right, so heat will not operate if this wheel, right, if that motor is not spinning. So I'm going to show you guys that here. Switch to time dryer since I don't have the sensor hooked up. And keep your eyes right on that little centrifugal switch, right where I showed you. Get the pointer. Okay, so right there. Okay. So keep your eyes right on that. Everybody see that? See how that moved? Now I'm gonna let go. See how it popped back out?
Dan, you got a flashlight you can shine on it?
That's the light on it.
Some people can't see there, John.
So right there, okay, that little switch, that centrifugal switch. You guys see that?
Yeah.
Okay, now watch that act when he presses start. See how that throws in position? And I open the door, the centrifugal switch pops back out, it's spring loaded, and that tells the system, hey, stop heating, right? Because excessive heating, it's dangerous, right? Especially if you got gas, you got electric coils, all that stuff, it's dangerous. So it's going to turn that off. Also, I've got this prop with this little, yeah, it's doing. It's also giving you an error code because this little pulley is spring loaded. You guys see that?
You can see it right there in the corner. You can see the pulley hitting that micro switch. So when the pulley hits the micro switch, that engages that micro switch to allow power through to the motor. Okay?
Okay. Press that up. switch.
Now, you can see the two plugs here on the back of this. See the two plugs here on the back of this? See that brown wire right there? If you ever go down in here and you'll look at it, you'll see the brown wire comes to this micro switch under here for this tensioner. If that is a TCO, so if that TCO blows, you're not going to get any power to your micro switch and your motor's not going to run. Okay, so they are in line with each other. So when you look at it on a schematic, you'll see that they're in line with each other on the schematic. Don't think that that's where they physically are, because here's your tensioner, and your micro switch, and there's your TCO over on the back of your blower motor. Okay, you ready?
All right, let's show the front here real quick. Okay, so we got the front of our system here. I'm gonna bypass this and turn this on. Okay, close the door. And I want you guys to pay attention right inside here, okay? So pay attention to the screen right inside there. This is a gas dryer, so when that switch hits and the motor is moving, you have the belt pulley, right? Is the tension on that belt pulley is activated, hitting the little switch, or not hitting the switch to deactivate it. That's going to send the signal in there to get that little igniter lit up. There's a little igniter up there. So when we start this, you're going to see that igniter. You're going to hear a click. I want everybody to be real quiet and listen for this click. Most of you guys will probably hear it in the back. Listen real carefully. Hear it? Now watch that igniter get hot. You're going to see it get real red in that little tube. See it? So that's the igniter getting up to the operating temperature to ignite the gas. As the little plungers, right? And you have these little plungers, these gas solenoids, right? You have two different chambers. You have a primary chamber and a secondary chamber. Let's go.
You lost it.
Right. Now notice how I let the door switch go and it stopped, right? That's a safety precaution. So again, I'm going to hit it. Hear the switch, hear the click. See it getting hot? Gets to its lighting temperature and then goes back off, right? It only heats it up enough, energizes it enough to heat the gas as that solenoid pumps the gas into the chamber, lights it, and then turns back off. And right next to it on the assembly, right here, right here, that's your flame sensor, okay? So that flame sensor tells once everything's ignited, hey, I can shut off, I'm good, everything's coming through.
So
Cool.
if the flame sensor goes bad, what happens?
It's
It
not going
just
to work.
doesn't.
Yeah, not gonna work.
So it's gonna default and act, I mean, it's not
The
gonna.
dryer will still spin, you'll just get no heat.
Yeah, you won't get any heat. That's where you'll get those complaints about no heat.
Okay?
All right.
So, of course, we've talked about single motors. Some of these do have two motors, but not very often will you see that. You'll have one motor for the spin of the drum, and you'll have another motor for the band. But that's not very common. You won't probably see that ever in a Samsung. It's usually just a single motor. Again, these have a rotor and stator in them. The rotor is in the center of this type of motor, where the stator is on the outside, okay? So the two different, here's the double motor setup. Like I say, on Samsung, you'll probably never see that, okay? The belt, of course, the belt's used for the drive, as we've already talked about. Heating elements, there's several different types of heating elements, and several different features on those heating elements. You got some TCOs there, you got some high limit, you got a low limit, thermal cutoffs, okay? Door switch, you got several different types. You got the plunger top like this one, and then you got the single push button in. So we'll have there several different types of door switches. Thermostats, like I've already said a little bit about the thermostats. This actually happens to be a high limit thermostat that goes directly on the side of the burner assembly. Okay, and it's a resettable, so it will reset. It is not a TCO. Thermistors, some of these thermistors, they actually are on the back of the air vent to test the air temperature and stuff, okay? Those are resettable, by the way. They just measure the temp. They'll tell the burner to shut off and come back on. If they ever trip out for any reason, they will reset, okay? So usually found on the rear of the exhaust fan. Start switch. Most of the start switches are either going to be electronic control push button, or they're going to be a mechanical start switch, kind of like this one. And they're going to be located, every one of them are going to be located in the control panel. Drum rollers, of course, we've already looked at the drum rollers on the front of the roller assembly. And you'll have them on the front and the back of the roller assembly for most Samsungs, but not all of them. Some of them ride just on the belt on the front of that drum that you see sitting down here. Okay? So if you see it sitting on the drum, some of them will ride literally on the belt, but a lot of times you'll find a little plastic Teflon piece on there so that it rides more smoothly. Okay? So it uses the main pressure with the rollers to actually turn that drum coming off the tensioner. Okay.
Now, Samsung's gonna recommend too, if you ever do need to replace, if one wheel is bad, they're gonna replace them all.
So
Don't
if it's
replace
got
just
4 in
one.
there, you need to order all 4 of them.
Yep.
And the front rollers are different than the back rollers, so make sure you get 2 of each, get the right ones.
And never
The
use the
shaft is
same
different.
remount it. See those little like triangle
Nope. don't
little
use
brackets there?
Yeah.
Do not reuse those. You'll use new brackets each time. Those brackets, once you try to pull those off, they will not work again. They might seem like it, but they will not secure that wheel back on there properly.
Yeah, have you ever seen a wheel fly off and you hear bad noise? Could be because you use the same one again.
Is that the same policy by doing that, warranty repairs?
Even on out of warranty, replace the whole assembly, it's better that way. Yep, okay. Another thing on the rollers on these, those particular ones there don't have the bearings in them. The new blue ones have bearings in them. And every once in a while, if you take it, just clean them up really good while you're in it or somebody's dryer, and put a little bit of zip oil on them. They'll run for a whole lot longer time. Okay? So, of course, then you got your idler pulley. Okay, it maintains the tension on the belt so it turns correctly. You have your belt switch, which is the micro switch that we were just showing you over there just a minute ago. Okay, if it breaks, it opens up. If the belt breaks, it opens up. Nothing else is going to work. You're not going to get any rotation. You're not going to get any heat, nothing. Okay, temperature selector switch. You have your cycle selector switch on these, but on some of your gas ones back there, you have a temperature selector switch. You can do low, medium, or high. That's on electric or gas. And you can select whatever you need per cycle, okay? And then the electronic control board and user interface, so you'll find a control board in there. And it'll be probably a lot of times right behind the user interface. Every once in a while, you'll find them on the side, up in the top. I think this one's up on the side there to the left, isn't it? You're on camera 3?
Yep.
Everybody start screaming focus. No, I'm just kidding.
Focus.
And it's behind this little metal sheeting.
Yeah, it's gonna be behind that little metal sheet right there. It's trying to focus in on that metal, but that's where your control board's going to be. If it'll ever focus and stay there.
Get right.
Got that. Go to 2.
Switching. There you go.
Right there behind this little
That's a
metal.
little better picture of it right there, okay? That's where your main control board is, okay? Your control boards and relays are gonna be right in there. So your relay and stuff for your L2 to go to your heating element is going to be in this one. If it has L2, this one doesn't have L2, but anyway. Okay? So that's part of that, and then you see the user interface board on the dryer there itself. Okay? Gas dryer operations, we've already talked about some of the gas dryer operations. Don't store any flammable materials around them. If you got a gas leak or anything, don't start the dryer, don't turn on the light switch. They even tell you not to turn on your cell phones because they can get a static charge and ignite the gas if you smoke gas. Make sure you open it up to vent it naturally. Do not turn on any fans or anything at that point because of the electrical spark that might happen inside a fan. Okay? Avoid emission sources. Don't decide to step outside the door or window that you just opened and take smoke. It wouldn't be a good idea. Okay? You need to have proper ventilation. That's even for a gas range. Okay? Whether it's LPG or LP or natural gas, you need to make sure that you keep it well ventilated. You open up the window and stuff, don't turn anything on, not the fan above the range. If you have a vent hood, so I've seen vent hoods in where dryers and stuff are. They turn on the dryer, a little vent hood comes on. Don't do that. Make sure you switch that off before you do that. You don't want the spark of that motor causing any issues if you have a gas leak of any sort. Always have a fire extinguisher nearby, okay? So hopefully they have within 6 feet of their appliances, a fire extinguisher. I keep one under my sink in my kitchen, and I keep one on the wall right there outside my laundry room, just in the garage. So I always have a fire extinguisher close by if I need it, because what is the #1 cause of fires in homes today? Dryers, because of the lint and stuff. They don't ever clean out the inside, and it gets burning, causes a spark, lights up. Okay? Make sure they have a smoke detector and a carbon monoxide detector installed in the home. Okay? That needs to be within 15 foot of the appliance. Make sure that the gas dryer is properly vented according to the manufacturer's recommendations. Never exhaust the dryer to a chimney, into the attic, or any crawl space, okay? Don't put it in a common duct like where your water heater, if it's gas, vents out. Don't vent it out to that.
Can they vent that into one of those water buckets?
Not preferably, no, because you're gonna be, if it's gas especially, it's going to be putting CO into the CO2 into the house.
Now, we don't know this though, because we don't go past the wall, right?
No, you don't know.
You'll know it.
I
You'll
mean,
be
we
able
don't
to
know
smell it.
that, but you say, it's on you to handle this, right?
That's right.
Yeah, anything outside the machine is the customer. Now, you can educate the customer on proper ventilation for a dryer, gas or electric. But I mean, you're not touching it. You're not doing any of the manipulation, right? If you show up and they've got one of those like aluminum accordion style vents, hoses or something. I've seen some where there's a minimum required diameter vent, right, for dryer. It's 4-inch, right? It need to have at least 4-inch diameter venting line. Manufacturer own specifications on that, they're gonna go with rigid, right? They recommend rigid. You can go semi-rigid, but definitely they do not recommend that accordion style, the little wafer thin stuff, because it is a fire hazard.
Vent hose. Okay, so here's some differences. You can take a picture of this on gas and electric dryers. Okay, so the main difference from an electric dryer is right there. Take a picture of that. It won't go through it too well. Y'all can read through that on your own. Talk about the burner assembly, the different things that are in there, the lower voltage, which is only 120 volts to it, different things like that. Okay, here's some of the parts that we've already pointed out and discussed on the features of a gas dryer. So controls will prevent the burner from coming on if certain conditions are not met. Well, the micro switch is one of them. The TCOs have to be met. The amount of amperage, and you're going to learn when you're getting into dryers today what type of amperage it is going to take to ignite that. Okay, and what happens as it goes on and off when it needs more heat. So you'll learn that today as you go through your hands-on. Okay, reason the motor does not start. Models with belt switches prevents the burners from operating. So will the TCOs on there. Any of the TCOs go out, that burner simply will not ignite. Okay, safety switches, all the safety switches, thermistors, TCOs are all in there for a reason. Don't bypass them. Now you might put your bypass in just for a little bit to test it and see if that's actually the problem. Take your bypass right back out. Don't leave it in there for the customer to use while you're gone. That is not safe. Make sure you're following all safety precautions when it comes to these appliances. Okay? And I've told people on microwaves the other day, always do a once over on your machine when you get done to make sure you've connected everything so that you don't have to pull it back apart and reconnect the switch, door switch. Or pull it back apart and reconnect the TCO or a thermistor inside a microwave. Do it once over, make sure everything is in, look at everything that you might have looked at. Do it once over, make sure it's all good. You've got it all cleaned up, ready to go, put it back together, you test it, you operate it, it works. Okay, if you do that once over, you'll save yourself a lot of time from having to come back and fix it because you forgot to do something. And that's on every appliance when you're working on it, okay? Burner, 4 main components. Of course, you got your solenoid, you've got your burn chamber, you have your igniter, and you have your flame sensor, okay? You do a gas test on these. So you're going to use a manifold pressure tester. Some of these may be a manometer, or some of these may be a magnehelic. 2.5 to 4 inches of water column is what it takes to run these correctly. We actually have a magnehelic here. You'll actually get to see how to work that here in just a little bit. You inspect the flame. There's certain ways to inspect the flames. When we go over gas ranges, we'll show you what the flame contents are and why that's important. But there's a way to inspect these flames to make sure you're getting a good proper flame and the proper heat from those. You'll inspect flashback, inspect for flashback in the burner, block, or exhaust fans. Exhaust vents are for anything that could flash back and cause a burn within the assembly. So lid and everything in the bottom. It's always a common courtesy if you're working on their dryer to go ahead and clean it out inside. Vacuum it out and clean it out because you know what you're doing. Don't let the customer do that. A lot of times they go in and break something. Okay? Check for power interruption. Whatever's causing the power interruption, whether it's the TCO, the micro switch, whether you have power interruption from the house, check for that. Make sure you have proper power. Check for carbon deposits. You'll have carbon deposits, little black stains or something on there. Okay, and another thing that you may have carbon deposits from is from bad gas. If you get too much moisture in the gas, it's going to put those little black floaties up into the air. If that happens, it gets on the clothes, that does not come out of the clothes. That stuff is nasty. If you see that, then you know you've got a gas mixture problem. Okay, so the gas and air is not mixing properly, or too much water or something in the fuel.
And we tell them to call the gas company for that, right?
Yep, you do. Expect the ignition time in the igniter, so you can expect that should be 50 to 90 seconds. But again, you also want to check the amperage and make sure it's getting up to proper amps. Check the ignition power. Okay, should be 300 to 850 watts depending on the dryer. Okay, but again, you can tell that by how many amps you're pulling because you can convert amps to watts. Okay, check the static pressure of the airflow. It should be 1.6 inches of water column. Okay, and you can do that just by the paper test. Get your paper towel, put it back behind there. If it blows the paper towel straight out, guess what? You got enough airflow. A piece of toilet paper that's a lot thinner, it's going to blow it straight out at probably about 0.7. But the paper towel, if it blows it straight out, you got about 1.6 in your airflow. Just an easy way to test it. Okay, troubleshooting. Troubleshooting is pretty much like you do anything. You check it from the board, then you go to the problem, and you actually check it there and make sure that is the problem. So you're going to look at clogged lid screens, exhaust duct problems, exhaust within the house. Sometimes you're going to see that exhaust goes up into the attic. Guess what? Those like to hold that moisture, rain it back down, and then cause it more of a lint clog than it needs to be. Sometimes you gotta get those little brushes and hook to the end of your drill. As you're going up, you put a vacuum down below and everything is falling out. You suck it out as you go down. Those need to be cleaned probably about 3 times a year. Okay? If it's going straight to outside like mine does, I have a little 2-foot section going to outside, that's all I have. I can actually just pull it off, run a rag around inside and pull it back out because I can reach the whole distance. Okay, dryer is located in the proper area. Temperature is below 45 degrees Fahrenheit. It won't operate if temperature's correctly. If the temperature is below 45 degrees Fahrenheit, because it won't warm up the air enough to dry it properly. It's going to take a longer dry time. Okay, wrong spin. I've actually seen some of these, and somehow or another somebody got it to spin backwards. If it's spinning backwards, it's not spinning clockwise. It's not going to dry properly because it's not looking at it the correct way. Okay, technical supply may be less than what is needed for it to actually operate. It's anywhere, they say anywhere around 110 to 125 volts. So it's actually 115 plus or minus 10 volts, but I can tell you at 105 volts, it's not going to work. It's going to take a minimum of 110 volts to make this work correctly. And then, of course, the load type, whether it's going to be towels, bedspreads, jeans, or et cetera. If you mix your loads and you're on sensor dry, it may not work because the heavier stuff in the middle is not going to get dry, while the lighter stuff goes out and says, I'm dry, puts it down on 10-minute cool down mode, and it shuts off, and your clothes didn't get dry. Okay, what did we learn? We learned to describe the different types of dryers, describe how electric dryer works, describe how a gas dryer works, identify common problems that you may encounter with a service call for dryers. And are there any questions? No, there's no questions. We'll talk to you about those later.